Okay, graphing quadratics. Worth quite a bit of points on your first page of your exam. It's the first question on there. The formula sheet is the exact formula sheet that I gave you on the first day of class. What you're holding, yep. Okay, so the first day of class, you all got this formula sheet. And this stuff will be on there. So it shows me these forms. I just need to know what's going on in these forms. Okay, so on these, there's H's and K's that represent our vertex. When you do the H and K when it looks like this, you should take the H and K as opposite values. Look at the formula. Here, if it looks like this, H would be opposite, but K wouldn't be. Because look at the formula. When it's in this form, what should you do to get the vertex? It's right there. Negative b over 2a. Okay? Now, I have to tell you this. I get lots of people who confuse the vertex with x-intercepts, now that we know all these things. So this is called the vertex. Okay? You have two ways to get the vertex. It's either the HK or negative b over 2a method. Okay? These are called the x-intercepts. What do we do to get x-intercepts? We can either factor or quadratic formula. Okay? Those are the big ideas that we've learned. Okay? But don't get them confused. They're two separate things. A vertex and an x-intercept. Okay? Everyone has that aligned in their brain. If you need to write that down somewhere, I would highly suggest that. Those are the two biggest ideas with quadratics, different methods. Okay, so number one, the vertex. So on the formula sheet, looks like the HK. Do I take an opposite? Do I take a same? Opposite. So positive 1, negative 7. Okay, did you notice how I took the one that was with the x first and then the one with the y? The slope is 2. So what direction do I know that this is going? It'll go up because it's positive 2. So it's opening up. The axis of symmetry is that when you can slice it down the middle. And what kind of equation? It's an equation, so what equals what? X equals. To go up and down, that's an x equals line. And what x value will you specifically go right through? What x value? Right there. I'm going to go through the x value of 1. Domain. This is supposed to be hopefully your free point. Negative infinity to positive infinity, right? Always the same. And the range. So remembering that it opens up. So what's the lowest height is something. What do I get to on the bottom there as a height? Negative 7 with a hard square bracket to the highest infinity, right? So describe the transformations. So the vertex has moved and it has gone right 1. So we moved right 1. And where else did it move? down 7. And then what does a 2 do to the shape of this? Remember, like the arms of the parabola, what happens to them? Skinnier. Skinnier, narrows, whatever. And the y-intercept. So you're going to have to do some work here. What is a y-intercept? When x equals 0. So that's good that you know that. So plug that in. So there's me putting a 0 into the equation, and then math. Just doing all my order of operations now. Okay, so we're going to graph it. I'm going to draw my vertex. I'm going to make a little side chart here called the over-up pattern. We should always remember how quadratics, parabolas move. What is the normal pattern for squaring? 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. So I'm not going to do that. My pattern got changed. Why did my pattern get changed? Slope is 2. So where do I apply that? On the up moves. So this is going to be 2 instead, and this is going to be 8. On your exam, I wrote to you that you have to draw me 5 points. So that would be a minimal amount of points on the test. There's my 5 points.
Wait, do you get marks if you do more?
What's that?
You said like minimum amount of marks if you do that. Do you get more?
No, like you have to draw me a minimal amount of 5 points. Yeah. Like you can keep going and draw me another one if you want, but it's way up there. Okay, here's the thing that kind of irks me on the exam. I drew it, and I wrote over here my y-intercept is at -5. Where is it on my drawing? Is it also at -5? So the thing that irks me is when somebody mathematically counts a y-intercept to be something, and then on their drawing, it's completely different. What do you do if that happens? You got to go back somewhere, right? Somewhere you made a mistake. They should match. Okay, that should be a red flag that makes you think something went wrong. Okay, vertex. What should I do with an equation like this? What's the process again? -b over 2a. So I'm going to go +6 over 2 times -1, which makes -3. Then I plug that in, right? So I gave you this one specifically because sometimes people do the math wrong. So this is like negative of -3 squared. You see how I would keep that out? Negative of -3 squared. That's the part that kind of tricks people. Negative of -3 squared. Okay, so maybe you want to practice what you would do on an exam. Would you type it into your calculator? Would you do it manually? I want to see if you can get the right number on that. Are we getting a unanimous number here? Did we get 6? Okay, that's a good practice because that's got some tricky negative stuff going on. Okay, the slope is, did you pick -1 for the slope? Because it's the negative on the x squared. So now that the slope is negative, that tells me it opens down. So it will look like that. And the axis of symmetry is when we can cut it through the middle. And we said the equation should state x equals. And then we have to pick which x value that we go right through. Right here, -3. Domain. Same. Range. So I'm looking like that. So what's the low? The low is -infinity to a top height of what number? 6 exactly. And your y-intercept, again, we said it's when x equals 0, and it should be that fast for you. Your math should happen that quickly. -3. Okay, here's the reason why. If I plug 0 into this, it's gone. If I plug 0 into that, it's gone. Subtract 3. Okay, draw me your vertex. And a quadratic pattern, 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. Slope of -1. So now I'm actually going to do this pattern, but heading down. So the 1, 1 is down. Okay. Five points. Also on your graph, check, does your y-intercept make sense? My y-intercept, -3, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, if you have a y-intercept of something like 8, red flag, that doesn't make sense. There's no way that's crossing. Okay, on your exam, so we're starting like that, so be ready to do both methods. Quite a bit of points happening. Okay, given x-intercepts are at 1 and 11, so we have x-intercepts at 1 and 11, and we have a parabola that does that. Then the equation for the axis of symmetry is x equals, where do we figure out the x value of the vertex? So for here, the vertex would be like that. How do I pick its x value? What do I know? could you figure out this x value by visualizing something? There's a 1 here, there's an 11 here, so how would I know where to go there? Right in the middle. Yeah. I don't think 5 is in the middle of those. 6. 6 is in the middle, right? You can add them and divide by 2. That's an average, right? Write a possible equation. Okay, we're going to work backwards. So if the x-intercepts are 1 and 11, what was the process that gives me x-intercepts? What process gives me x-intercepts? No, that's the vertex. Factoring gives me x-intercepts, right? So what was my factoring stage before those x-intercepts then? Does that make sense? Those factors gave me those x-intercepts. Can you now FOIL that out? Okay, and I will lose something on my exam because of my answer right now. I'm missing something. What am I missing that I'm going to lose points for? If I answer this, I have lost points. Why? It has to be a equation. So if you have to be an equation, y equals this, right? That makes it an equation. Okay, did I make it look like an equation that matched something on my formula sheet? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. Okay, we have a quadratic equation with a vertex of this and a point of this. Write an equation. So I'm going to just kind of be a visual person here. I have my vertex at -1, 8, bless you, and I have a point at 1, 0. So my parabola would have looked like this. You don't have to draw it. I'm a visual person to make things click in my brain. Okay, here's what I want to talk about. What's the movement? To go from the vertex to that point, what have we all done? How much have we gone over? How much have we gone down? So would you understand that we moved over 2? Does that make sense to you? And we went down 8. That doesn't fit my chart. That's not the same thing I should have done. So we went over 2, but we didn't go up 4. So therefore, what's the multiplier that causes our situation? We went down 8, so our slope is -2. Okay, I'm going to write an equation now, and looking at this, I'm going to pick this one in the middle here because I can plug in my slope now and I can plug in my vertex. So leave the y alone, leave the x alone. So there's me leaving the x and the y. Okay, do your plugins. So you're going to replace the slope with -2. And you're going to plug in the vertex. So there's our slope, our vertex. I don't care about the point anymore. I just need the vertex and the slope in there. So how do I put this in? Same or opposite? Opposite. So +1 goes with the x. And subtract 8 goes with the y. Okay, on your exam, one of these two questions is on there. One of the two are on here. So either the barn or the revenue. You're trying to maximize the area of this pen. So we're going to put some L's and W's on there. And we want 1,000 feet of fencing. And then we're going to try to get a max area out of it. Okay, so I'm going to say all of these sides add up to 1,000. So 1L plus 3 of those W's would add up to 1,000. Okay, so that's one piece. Then I want to maximize the area of this. Area of a rectangle is length times width. Now, do we remember the strategy for this piece? Okay, this is the equation that I want to be, but I can't do any work because I have too many variables. I can't work with L's and W's. So what did we always do? We use the info for here to make a substitution. Which letter is easier to get alone? The L or the W? L equals 1,000 minus 3W. I am going to take that piece for L and replace it into that L position, okay? Next step, I'm going to distribute that. And that's my quadratic. I have a quadratic equation. Okay, we're trying to get max area. This is the quadratic. Would you agree that it will look like that? Because it has a -3 slope. Okay, this is actually a B and this is the A, right? If it looks like that, the vertex is on the top. Now, that means the vertex is a max. How do I find the vertex? What's the strategy? HK or the -B over 2A? Which one? -B over 2A. So -1,000 divided by 2 times -3. Okay, what does that number mean? It's usually the x of the vertex, but that's not here. Instead of having an x of the vertex, we have a w. So this is w. Then we usually plug it in. Okay? If I plugged it in, it would equal area. And I actually don't really care about my area. It says what are the dimensions. So I need my L. So what can I do? I can go here. L equals 1,000 minus 3 of the W's. So there's my final answer. Number 6, revenue question. You're selling concert tickets, so revenue equals the ticket price times the people that are coming. That's how we make our money, right? How much each ticket is times the people that are coming, that's the money. Okay, I'm going to leave 2 big brackets, and then we're going to read and we're going to fill it. You sell concert tickets for 10 bucks. So there's that. At this price, 500 people are coming. So that's in the people bracket. If you increase the price by $1, so in the price, if that goes 1x, you know what, I need an x on there because I don't know how many times I want to do that, then 10 fewer people come. So this would go down by 10x. Each increment of this changes an increment of that. Okay, same strategy as last question. So what are you going to do? FOIL negative b over 2a. Okay, let's see if you can get there on your own. Go ahead. Okay, so the FOIL happened. I got a negative b over 2a result because I found the max, which is a vertex of the parabola. So x equals 20. So I'm not going to plug it in because if I plugged it in, it would get me my revenue, and that's not the question. If the question said what's the highest revenue, you got to plug that in to get R. The question says what is the ticket price? So where do I plug it in? There's a spot I should plug it in. Ticket, just to get the ticket price. Just in that section, hey? Does that make sense? 10 plus 1x, so the price equals 10 plus 1 times 20. So you should be selling $30 tickets. So here is the quadratic formula, which is obviously on your formula sheet. Do not memorize it. Okay, we always talked about 3 situations for the quadratic formula. Okay, this is the formula. This square root part told me a lot, and I called it the discriminant. So just this b squared minus 4ac, just that tells me a lot. So I could have a parabola that does this. I could have a parabola that does that twice. How do I know when I'm using this formula that that happened? What kind of number would you square root and get 2? If you square rooted a positive number, it would give you 2 things. I could have a parabola that only touches 1 spot. What was the rule about that? The square root part had to be exactly 0. Okay, remembering that in the formula, if you square root 0 and you add or subtract 0, that's not anything different. That's just one number. You can also have a parabola that doesn't even cross at all. So why would I know that from the formula? If I ran into a square root of a negative, it's telling me that no, there's not even a solution to this thing. Okay? You need to make sure for the exam you understand that scenario, right? There's 3 things that could happen. Okay, here we go. Use the formula to solve. So x equals negative b, so positive 9, plus minus the square root of b squared, so 81, minus 4 times a 4 times a negative 5. All over 2 times 8. Okay, I would get the square root part, so 81 minus 4 times negative 5. Do we remember the typing situation? Because this was a big calculator type stuff. How do you do that in your calculator? So you don't have to write it out, but I will show you what I would be typing. Okay, those are the things I'm typing into my calculator, and I'm expecting you to be 2 decimal places with answers on your exam. Okay, you can always check your answers, right? You can put that into, you can go 4 times 2.71 squared minus 9 times 2.71 minus 5 equals, and you should get 0. Okay, you'll get close to 0 because that's rounded, but you can check. Okay, on the exam, running into this question, there's a red flag here. I can't start the formula. Would you have recognized that? I can't start the formula here. Why can't I just plug in the formula right now? What's the problem? It's not all on one side, so we need to do a move. You should have it equals 0, right? Remember that big chart I gave, algebra? If you ever see two variables, boom, equals 0 before you start anything. Okay, I'm also just kind of flip-flopping some stuff around there because I like A, B, C. I like to look at it like that. All right, now you can go into it. So x equals negative b, so positive 6, plus minus the square root of b squared, so 36, minus 4ac. All over 2 times a. Anybody else get negative 52 in the radical? So, I already know my answer. What is it? There's no solution to this. Which means I have a parabola that just never touches the x-axis, ever. Okay, we have a little bit more to go, not too much, but... So this shouldn't take long because we're factoring pros now, right? Okay, we need to be recognizing styles. We got 4 big ones to always look for. GCFs. What else? GCFs. What else? Difference of squares. Simple trinomials. Complex trinomials. So how will I attack this one? What's the style? GCF. A can come out of all of those units. So if I take an A out, I get A squared on that one, minus 4A, minus 60. Okay, now I can see a simple trinomial. You have to keep the A in the front. It doesn't disappear, it's still there. So you need multiples of 60, 6 times 10, to make a negative 4. Do you understand here that you actually have 3 solutions to this equation? Did you pick 0 as well? Question B is I don't know that style.
Easy trial, no.
Simple. No.
GCF. There's 2 terms. They could both get a what out of them? B? Was that the like, oh, I'm half paying attention to bio, and then boom?
No, I put bio away.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow, man.
So B equals 0 again on that, and 7. What part of the algebra branch would you do on this one? Complex trinomial is the type. Okay, how do we start up complex trinomials? Flow number is negative 30. Do you want me to list them all, or can you think of a set that would make a negative 1 already? 5, times 6 with a negative. So there's my numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to negative 1. I'm going to make an F list and I'm going to make an L list separately. Okay, I need you to partner something up to make a 5 and a 6. What are you going to put with what? What are you going to put with what? Okay, this seems to be the hardest part, is lining it up properly, okay? You have to make sure everything's connected as a FOIL. So first times first. Does that make my first? Does it make 2x squared? Yes. Outside arc, inside arc. We already determined this. So we said we would put the x with a 5 plus. And then I had grouped a 2x to go with a 3 to make negative 6. X equals 3, x equals some fraction. Make sure you do a fraction, opposite, divide. Opposite, divide. Because that's what you're doing with algebra, right? To solve that, you would have to move 5 and divide by 2 to get x alone. Question D is a little bit different on the algebra branch. Can anybody tell me where I would be on the algebra branch here? I only have one variable. There's only one variable type. So what can you do if there's one variable? Isolate. You can isolate with one variable. So I'm going to subtract 2 is my first step. Now I'm going to times by 3. Minus 1. Divide by 2. And everybody's going to get this right on their exam as an answer. Plus or minus 2. All right, the last thing to think about is what to do on this question. Okay, algebra branch. So, I have 2 variables in here. I have an m squared and an m. Equals 0, always first and foremost, right? Equals 0, have to equal 0. Then you can proceed with your strategies. So now you should say, oh, it's a simple what multiplies to and adds. Okay, so I tried to trick you there just to make sure you're like, yep, it equals 0. Okay, one more question and I'm done. I'm going to skip one. I'm going to just do this one. Okay, complete the square. Process on the exam. It's on there. Ready? First step, get this out of there. Get the last number out of there. Second step, we want to finish the trinomial with something specific. We're going to throw our own number into this. How do we put that number on there? We want something on there.
And square it.
What it?
Half it and square it.
Half it and square it. When you say it, you're looking at the what?
8.
The middle. So half, got that? Squared means you would put a 16.
Why can't you just double it?
Because that won't work.
It won't?
No. Like if I had a 10,
Okay, true, yeah.
now I need to put a 25.
Yeah.
Doubling is 20, so that's not the process. Okay. What would be the third step now? Remember the third step. You have to balance this out because remember that didn't exist on your teeter-totter. So the final answer should be y plus 6 equals a perfect square. And remember our goal is to look like this at the very end, right? That's our goal. So it has to look like that. So this is an x. What am I foiling out? What number would go in there that would make that trinomial? Okay, so remember thinking about squaring this, it would double to that and it would square to that. Doubles and squares. You know what? You can always check your answer. You can take your answer and FOIL it out. Would you get back to that?